As I mentioned, it is going to be feeling much colder than this. Into the evening, very little changes across the north, still further sleet and snow showers around, but across the south a little bit quieter with more in the way of dry and clearer weather developing. And then as we head towards the Christmas period, it does look like it's going to turn much milder, so the chances of snow at this stage very low.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Fabio, thank you for coming in. It's great to see you.
Nice to meet you.
So you were born near Rome?
Yeah, in a very small town. It's called Serrone, about an hour south of Rome. Yeah, on the hillside.
Was it a place of excellent cuisine?
It is indeed a place of excellent cuisine and red wines. In fact, it's the only DOCG red wine of the region. Yeah.
Most of your career, I mean, this may seem self-evident, you've cooked Italian. I'm thinking that's quite a challenge to cook Italian in Malaysia, to cook Italian in Bermuda or Turkey. Was that a challenge?
It was, yeah, but I like challenges, so that's one of the reasons why I started to travel, because of my job. For example, in Malaysia, I've been sent there to twist a grill restaurant into an Italian restaurant inside a 5-star hotel. And I was doing the chef training for the local chefs. And then I build the menus, I train the chefs, and then I eventually go back.
In Italian food, is there lots of innovation?
I would say in the past 10 years, yes. It used to be a very traditional cuisine, but in the past 10, 15 years, Italian chefs, they are a bit more open-minded, I would say. Give us some examples of your innovation. Well, hide and seek is very well around the innovation. In that bar is a bar and kitchen where we have a Sharia plate concept, where we try to take our guests in a culinary journey, starting from a classic dish and then reinventing to a modern twist. Usually I like to twist the style of cuisine between different countries, different continents.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Ho, 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 it's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, alongside Adam Brooks, Connie Shaw, Chloe Dobbs and Susie Stride. Tonight on the show...
Why 2024 has shown why we have to leave the ECHR.
Stephen Fry jumps off the sinking gender ship as soon as it becomes cool to do so.
Britain's High Court has just taken a fatwa into account in a judgment. Slippery slope.
Rachel Reeves has the audacity to tell businessman Farage he can't run the economy.
And Oxford's diversity drive is long overdue.
It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. A very warm welcome to the Saturday 5 with me, Darren Grimes. What a week it's been. Britain's gone bonkers just in time for Crimbo. Sharia councils influencing our courts, Rachel Reeves mouthing off about Nigel Farage's ability to balance the books, and Stephen Fry dropping Stonewall faster than Poundland Bauble. Honestly, it's like the nation's auditioning for a new series of Carry On Crumbling. And if that's not enough to get your tinsel in a twist, Sir Keir Starmer handed Lord Mandelson, the man who mistook mushy peas for avocado in the Red Wall, he's been given a starring role as our ambassador to Trump's America, because nothing quite says special relationship like sending EU-obsessive Mandy, who called Trump a danger to the world. Pass me the mulled wine, my friends, I need it already. Who's advising Starmer at this rate? I've got to ask, is it Eddie Izzard? Because you go across to Oxford University, that once great bastion of brainpower, and it's been accused of lowering academic standards to hit those pesky diversity quotas. It's absolute madness. Is this progress to actually say, well, you know, we need to get more bums on seats that are more colourful than white kids being exclusively there, so we're going to drop our standards? Why strive for excellence when you can just hand out degrees based on skin colour, like Christmas crackers being handed out round your table? And the pièce de résistance, of course, is that High Court judge citing an Islamic fatwa to make a judgment. That's the Islamic Council, run by a man with more aggressive views than women in being judged in the Victorian era, now being used in British law. Where does that lunacy get us? Hopefully by the time the courts start dishing out sentences in camel lengths, I'll be long under. So grab your Prosecco, pop on your sequins and prepare for a show as catty as and as cutting as a Christmas panto. The Saturday Five, my friends, it's time to dish the dirt, light the fire and get this show on the road. You at home, you know the drill by now. Each host outlines their argument about a chosen topic, then we all pile in and the fur starts to fly. Of course, we want your views as well. Send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Don't forget your questions for Ask the Five. No topic off limits. But before we start tearing each other apart, here's your Saturday night news with Sophia Wensler.
Darren, thank you. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines. At least 5 people, including a 9-year-old child, have been killed after a car drove into crowds at a Christmas market in Germany. German media are naming the alleged suspect as Talib al-Abdullah Mohsen, a 50-year-old Saudi doctor with reported Islamophobic views. He's been arrested and faces charges of murder and attempted murder as Chancellor Olaf Scholz promises a full investigation. German prosecutors are saying the motive is still unclear, though the attackers' dissatisfaction of the treatment of Saudi refugees in Germany may have been a factor. Flowers have been laid at the scene ahead of a memorial service in the city's cathedral, which has just got underway. European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, have expressed solidarity, calling the attack horrific, while US President Joe Biden says his team has been in close touch with German officials following the attack. In other news, time is running out for pensioners to claim pension credit and secure their winter fuel payment for 2024 to 2025, with the deadline just hours away. Online applications close at 11:59 p.m. and phone lines have now closed. Around 760,000 pensioners could miss out, with the benefit topping up weekly incomes and unlocking extra support. The change, announced by Chancellor Rachel Reeves, means winter fuel payments now go only to those on means-tested benefits, slashing recipients from 11.4 million to just 1.5 million. Scrap staff parking charges, that's the call from unions, as new research reveals 1 in 4 NHS trusts in England have raised fees for patients, staff or both in the last 2 years. Patients' charities say the charges unfairly penalise unwell people, while NHS leaders argue financial pressures leave trusts little choice but to charge. The rises, often targeting city centre hospitals, have seen higher earners pay more, while NHS staff collectively spent over £70 million on parking last year. Unions say health workers are on their knees and need support, not extra costs, as they face the strain of chronic understaffing and the fallout from the pandemic. The Department of Health insists fees are locally set but must be reasonable. And wet, windy and wild, Christmas travel plans for millions could be blown off course this weekend. Yellow weather warnings for wind cover much of the UK, with gusts of up to 80 miles an hour for Scotland and northern coastal areas. The weather has led to the cancellation of some ferry services, road closures, flight cancellations at Heathrow Airport and rail disruption. Showers could bring snow and icy conditions to parts of Scotland, with strong winds making Sunday's journeys exhausting, according to the RAC. Winds will ease by Monday, though, and a mild and cloudy Christmas is on the cards for most of the UK. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Darren.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. It's Saturday night, my friends, and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, and I can promise that you're in for a very lively show. A lot of you messaging in to say that you miss your Willie. Well, I'm afraid Willie is in Australia, and someone called Fred just replied saying, well, lose some weight then. I'll let you decide what that gag is about. Right, let's crack on with tonight's first debate. I'm going to abuse my position here and kick us off. Brace yourself for this one. Take a deep breath in. Something's happening in this country that should send shockwaves through each of us. Britain's legal system is getting dangerously cosy with Islamic religious authority. The Times reports that a High Court decision is undermining the very heart of secular law, all thanks to a fatwa, which is a religious ruling from a Sharia council. Yeah, you heard that right, my friends. A British judge used an Islamic fatwa to decide whether a 5-year-old, Tafida Rakib, should live or die. She'd suffered brain damage and doctors were ready to turn off her life support. But her parents, with the help of the Islamic Council of Europe, founded by the, well, not exactly moderate, Hatim al-Haddad, got a fatwa declaring it impermissible to end her life support. The judge actually cited that fatwa as a reason to keep the girl alive, even though doctors said she had no chance of recovery. Now, ignoring what you think about that girl's chances, this isn't just any fatwa. This is from a council run by a man whose views on women are dodgier than Del Boy's market stall, and they've been branded misogynistic by the former extremism commissioner, Dame Sarah Khan. The fella has even been sanctioned by the US and the EU for his views on women's rights, and yet his opinions used to influence a British court. A man who took a fact-finding trip to meet the Taliban. British courts ought to say they don't give a flying flamingo about this man's fatwa. This isn't just one case, it's a warning. The UK has been pulled into a dangerous orbit where Sharia courts are gaining influence. Fatwas ought to have no place in our legal system. Just where, my friends, does this madness take us in 2025? Well, Chloe, I mean, looking at this, the Times obviously released the list of and the number of Sharia councils in this country, and we are the capital in the Western world of Sharia courts. I mean, does that give you pause for thought? Should there ever be a fatwa taken as a reason and used by a judge in a British court of law?
Absolutely not. Now, regardless of what you think in this child's case, citing this fatwa in the High Court, that gives legitimacy to these Sharia courts. We should not be giving any legitimacy to these whatsoever. I didn't even know if they existed, to be honest, before this Times report. I was horrified to see that in Britain, you can come and live here and ignore the rule of law in this country and just come up with your own. Use Sharia law instead and go get your marriages and divorces done under this quack court. I mean, it is just absolutely terrifying to see this is happening in Britain. These should be outlawed.
Connie?
I mean, I think it's another example of our country happily absorbing this Islamic culture and ideology. I mean, not only do we have these Sharia courts popping up, like I was like you, Chloe, I had no idea their prevalence in the country until this Times report.
A lot of people have said that.
Yeah, but also the fact that only a couple of weeks ago we had a British MP standing up in Parliament calling for effectively blasphemy laws to be brought in and the Prime Minister agreeing with him.
Yeah, Adam, I mean, does this give you concern for the future of the country?
It does for many reasons. No religion should have any influence over the laws that we abide by in this country. And again, going forward, I don't think any religion, whether it be Islam or Hinduism or any religion out there, should grow in power to mean that people like you and me or atheists have to abide by certain rules. Now, this is just a court within a community, but I worry about...
when it's been a High Court judge is using that ruling to actually say, well, it is impermissible for this little...
I mean, this is a shocking revelation. But
case, if I was the parents of that little girl, I dare say I would be in the position of wanting it to be viewed as impermissible in itself. But that's not the point. The point is that this is a fatwa being used by a High Court judge.
Look, I worry about maybe women within that community being bullied, suppressed or controlled, punished by these so-called courts. So that is my concern. But this sets a dangerous precedent, and I would like to hear maybe the government speak about that. But this government will not speak about that because they potentially would upset 3 million voters that could vote for them at the next election. And trust me, they're going to need every vote that they can get at the next election.
I mean, Susie, you're a good old feminist, right? I mean, do you have concerns about... Would you not say you're a feminist?
I'm not. I think that word can have lots of connotations. I mean, I just believe that women and men are equal and we need to just get over loads of baggage from the past.
I would argue that many of these courts would not hold that very view.
Yeah, I mean, look... I saw this a couple of days ago, actually, and I think it's incredibly concerning. Look, one of the things that makes our country great is we have been ahead of the times on these things, giving women the vote, and these are hard fought for rights for women. And I think what is deeply concerning is particularly how women can be treated, some of the whatever you want to call it, the beliefs around women. Ultimately, men and women are equal. They're equally able to do things. And I just think we cannot backtrack on these things or be going backwards. And I think that it is concerning. You also just can't have parallel legal systems going on. We have British law, and that is right. And it is good, you know.
But Susie, what would you say to people that say, well, even having this conversation is Islamophobic?
No, because look, I think you can celebrate the fact that we live in a country that has people from many different backgrounds. You know, I'm a strong Christian. I've got loads of friends that are strong Muslims. You've got loads of friends that are Hindus.
But is this not a sign that it's not working out very well for us?
No, because I think in every community you have extremism. You have that in every community. And the point is, you know, whether you're the government or whether you're the media, you have to have those checks and balances and those challenges in place that say, no, sorry, we're not going to have that here.
Do we have that? Because it is happening, you know, a High Court judge taking that into account.
Yeah, and I think that is deeply concerning. I think, look, I'm really hoping that, you know, he has been held to account on that, because I just think it's, you know, how insulting is that to women across this country, you know, that have experienced any kind of oppression, you know?
I mean, Chloe, do you have as much sympathy with the multicultural ideology and dogma that is very much protected, just very briefly?
So I think that it's normal in a society to have various different religions, but if one of them grows too big and too powerful, then things become quite concerning. You start getting into secularism. That's where we're headed, and Keir Starmer will not stand up for this because he is a coward. OK, Teresa's written in. She says Sharia law should be banned in this country. And that actually, Michael says, sorry, you're all 25 years behind the times. It's been in place here in Bradford for over 25 years. Time for you all to grow up. Well, that's me told. Right, still to come tonight, we're going to expose Stephen Fry's LGBT hypocrisy over Stonewall. And next, a Romanian who was jailed for violent robbery was told he won't be deported due to ECHR rules. So does this mean, after a year of these stories, 2024 has revealed why Britain needs to turn its back on Strasbourg to keep our country safe? You're with the Saturday 5, my friends. We're live on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics. Andy has written in, who is a member of GB News. Thank you, Andy. He says, in Dubai, a Muslim country, I believe their laws permit Christianity to be practiced in Christian homes and some specific buildings and nowhere else. Should Britain consider doing the same here and reflect the same values for other faiths in our country? Some politicians in France are discovering this. And Peter says, Islam is not a religion, not just a religion. It's a form of government, laws, rights, and the lack, therefore, of, if you're a woman, well, it's a problem. To think of it as a religion on par with Christianity is a mistake. Yeah, well, food for thought there coming through. Now, though, it's our next debate coming up now. Which one of you reprobates wants to go next?
And that'll be me, Dan.
Oh, well, here, hell hath no fury. Adam, take it away.
Look, I know we're only 6 months on from the last election, but I truly believe the next election will be fought on immigration and leaving the ECHR. In 2024 alone, we have seen the ECHR stop this country deporting some dangerous criminals, which include an Albanian murderer. We've had a Ugandan murderer. We have had Jamaican drug dealers, Indian paedophiles. Some of the most dangerous people that could be in our community, we cannot get rid of because of this foreign court and foreign judges. Now, if you say this on platforms like X, you are met with lefties that will turn around and say, but Churchill helped set the court up, helped set this treaty up. Now, if anyone truly believes that Winston Churchill would be happy that Britain could not rid itself of some of society's most dangerous foreign criminals, then I have a bridge to sell you. He would not stand by and allow this to happen. This treaty was not set up for these reasons. It was to stop another rise of a Nazi party or an authoritarian regime taking over Europe. We need to leave the ECHR, and I believe that only reform gives us the best chance to do that. Labour will never leave the ECHR. The Tories may say it, but we know they have no backbone to do that. So the next election will be fought on leaving the ECHR. Thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a year, hasn't it, of constantly... I felt like I'm having a full deja vu where every single week I'm saying, well, Britain, because of the ECHR, can't deport this absolute ghastly person who has no right to remain in this country and puts all of our sons and daughters at risk. So I can't understand what rationale, what liberal progressive argument there is in favour of the ECHR. A right to a family life. Well, you've got a right to a family life to keep your child safe. How dare you tell me that this person's rights to stay in this country supersede that of the British public who are at risk here?
Yeah, it seems now that the criminal has more rights than the victim. And especially, you know, we have enough, I say, scumbags in this country. We do not need to import more. And if we've got them here, we should be able to deport them. These are dangerous people.
Well, you mentioned the victims there, and it's absolutely horrible for some of the victims, specifically talking about the grooming gangs here. You've got people in places like Rochdale, for example. 2 huge grooming gang leaders abused a horrendous number of girls over many, many years. They're still walking the community. So many victims, they have to see their abusers after they've been let out of prison every single day walking down the street because they have, you know, appealed and appealed and appealed on ECHR grounds and been able to stay in this country. How can we do that to the daughters of this country? I think it's horrible.
Susie, Union Jack has written in, and Union Jack says, how would reform get anything through the House of Lords? And that's a good point, because Sir Keir Starmer's just put 30 of his mates in there, and he said he would abolish the House of Lords. I mean, hey, I think that more U-turns than, well, Jeremy Clarkson.
I mean, look, there's no U-turn there. Look, ultimately, every single Prime Minister over the last, whatever, 20, 30 years has had the opportunity to appoint people to the House of Lords. And I would rather have people there that have expertise. What I do not like, people that have inherited the opportunity to be there and actually have no expertise. For me, that is what is a complete travesty. But when you've got people like the Tories, the Lib Dems, they've all just appointed people, and they've appointed people with expertise.
What do you think, actually, these new people with these expertise might even be willing to look at some of these headlines that are on our screens now, just for our radio listeners? Remember how the Clapham chemical attacker, Abdul Asadi, was allowed to stay in the UK despite previous sex offences and a sex offence conviction. And he was allowed to stay. There are a slew of these examples from one single year. A foreigner who clubbed a man to death will not be deported to protect his mental health. Syrian bank robber allowed to stay in Britain because of ECHR rules. Portuguese drug dealer can stay in Britain because deporting him would upset his mother.
Yeah, I mean, look...
I couldn't give a flying flamingo about his mother.
I mean, look, let's just be honest. You know, I think for me, that appears to be a complete abuse of the ECHR. If anything, it's completely, you know, opposed to what it should be about. You read those headlines and you think, sorry, that is a joke. You cannot have people committing crimes and then claiming, oh, actually, on my mental health grounds. I think that is unacceptable, and I would absolutely have no problem deporting them. What I would say is the Labour Party have deported, literally, in the last 5 months, more than the Tories did in about 5 years.
They've paid Brazilians to go back.
How many of those...
Doesn't matter. They've stuck them on a plane and they've sent them home, and they're doing the the business.
They gave them
I
free brand,
guarantee you,
and they voluntarily left.
Yvette Cooper is going to do the business on that. She really is. And let's be honest, the Tories do a good job on it. The Tories utterly found on immigration.
I've seen
shot through the roof.
Hang on, I've seen more backbone on a book falling apart in a library. I really have.
What then? What? Is that Yvette?
Government.
Oh, I think, look, you're talking about Yvette Cooper. Yvette Cooper is as tough as nails. And she's been very hardline on it.
Decisions, and because Boop on our GB News Your Say says leaving the ECHR isn't enough. Our courts have decades of human rights precedent set here in this country. Lawyers will cite these cases.
Yes, well, obviously, if we do leave the ECHR, which I agree with you, Adam, I think we do need to do this for the safety of our own country. But I do actually have more faith in the Conservatives than you do. I think Kemi Badenoch needed to have a different stance to Robert Jenrick on this in the leadership election, so that she could be seen as sort of someone who is a bit more concerned with the reputation of the country, which is why I think people don't have a backbone on this, because we're afraid of how we'll look on the world stage, not going along with international law. But I think by the time it gets to the next election, with more and more examples like this, Kemi isn't going to have much of a choice. And I think the fact she sat on the fence it shows, hopefully, that there will be some direction.
I don't think the Conservative Party and the establishment would allow us to leave there. The ECHR
but they need to do something to attract the people who are going to vote reform back to the Tory party. I mean, they don't have to do much to convince the ones who are already so unhappy with this current Labour government. They need to do something more radical to prove that they are going to actually do something about immigration.
All right. And Andy's written in, says, not one single vote has been cast in favour of mass migration ever in this country. Note, it's exactly the same for all European countries, and I'm afraid we are seeing the chickens come home to roost as far as that's concerned. Right, still to come tonight, is Rachel Reeves a hypocrite to claim that Nigel Farage hasn't the faintest idea how to manage the economy? Pot, kettle, black. But next, Stephen Fry has denied his historic support for LGBT plus whatever charity Stonewall, but why? What's brought about this U-turn? I'm speaking a lot about U-turns. Is this an episode of Top Gear? Find out after this short break. You're with the Saturday 5. We're live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. We're looking ahead to Christmas after a cold and very windy day on Sunday. The weather does look like it's settling down towards Christmas itself, and for all of us feeling a good deal milder. But before we get there, we still have this area low pressure close by. Note the tightly packed isobars indicating some very windy weather, especially across more northern and western parts. We do have warnings in force throughout Sunday, so if you do have any travel plans, do allow some extra time for your journeys. Away from the wind, we'll see plenty of showers moving in, especially across more northern parts, where we'll see some of the showers turn into sleet and snow, especially across the high ground. So we could just see a little bit of ice around first thing on Sunday. But for most, really, Sunday is going to be a day of sunshine and scattered showers. The far north of Scotland, however, we could just see a longer spell of rain arriving here. And again, that could potentially be a bit of a mix of rain, sleet and snow. But back to showers really for Northern Ireland and Northern England. Again, across the high ground, easily going to be falling as sleet and snow. Similar story for Wales, but I think for many southern parts of England, any showers will be falling mainly as rain. And then moving towards the afternoon, very little changes. I think the best of the brightest weather will be across parts of East Anglia and the southeast of England. And for all of us, with the winds coming in from the northwest, it's going to be feeling a bitterly cold day. Could still see gales or severe gales in the north, and factor in the strength of the wind. Temperatures on a thermometer could get up as high as 7 degrees, but probably close to freezing for some of us as you add on that wind. So Monday starts off pretty cold, could see a widespread frost, but some sunshine to greet us as we start the week. But as we go through the course of the day, cloud and outbreaks of rain arrive in from the west, and that's going to herald the milder theme as we head towards Christmas Day itself. But unfortunately, it's going to come with a lot of cloud. So for most of us, it's going to be a grey Christmas this year rather than a white one.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for all of your messages about tonight's show. And John says, Labour are not for defending this country or looking after the real British people. Lose the ECHR. Soon as the illegal migrants touch down, send them straight back. And Josh says, people hate reform because populist policies are just easy answers. That's in quotation marks. Why can't it be easy, though, John asks. Just deport them. Even if all we know is they've come from France. That's it. Action it. And Mean Green says ECHR is doing exactly what it was set up to do, avoid driving Europe ever further right. Well, I mean, since when did being right-wing be synonymous with common sense? That's what I would ask to that question. Right, OK, up next we have Connie, but James has written in about Connie and says they took Connie Shaw's lousy Leeds... I have no idea if it was lousy. Lousy Leeds Uni radio position. And now she's on GB News. The woke mob will be furious. Well, I can only hope. All right, Connie, I'll let you take it away.
So, Stephen Fry has divided both sides of the gender debate this week as he withdraws his support from Stonewall, the LGBT charity, on the Trigonometry podcast, where he announces this. But is that too little too late, or is it better late than never? For the gender-critical feminists, a lot of them are saying that it is too little too late, whereas the trans rights activists feel betrayed. Is he trying to maintain his title of national treasure by jumping the sinking gender ship as soon as it becomes cool to do so? Funnily enough, he also denies that he ever supported Stonewall. In this following clip that we can show you, he says that he didn't ever support Stonewall, although he did maybe a bit in the 90s. But you can also see that in May this year, he was celebrating Stonewall's birthday in a video that he filmed for them.
How can Stephen Fry, in all conscience, continue to support them?
Do I? I'm not sure I do support Stonewall.
Oh, really?
I have no interest or support of this current wave of nonsensical. I agree completely with Levi Pace. Was that his name?
Levi Pace.
Hey, Stonewall, happy birthday. You've done such good over the years. I'm old enough to remember what the world was like for queer people before you managed to move heaven and earth in ways that no one ever thought you would. So, congratulations and thank you.
Well, I mean, that tells us all we need to know, doesn't it? And, I mean, what are the issues, Connie, with Stonewall? Why have you got an issue with them?
Well, the issue with Stonewall has really ever been since 2015, when they added the T to the LGB, when they basically ran out of things to campaign on once gay marriage had been established in law. So they founded the new social justice movement and added a group of people who are completely separate to gay, lesbian and bisexual people to sort of carry on their train of thought, basically, that they had lost to basically make themselves relevant.
And is your point that actually Stephen Fry has only felt comfortable condemning Stonewall at this juncture because of the fact they have been so thoroughly exposed in backing everything from, you know, children being brought into the trans ideology movement?
Well, the funny thing is about this interview that he did on Trigonometry is he didn't actually cite why he has withdrawn his support. He just says that Stonewall is caught up in this quagmire, you know, one of those very fancy words he likes to use to make himself sound very intelligent. But the reality is that he has ignored, as one of the most prominent gay icons of this country, has ignored the travesty that is happening to women's rights and specifically gay children, which he was one himself once. They're the main victims of this ideology. And he, in the past, has has suggested that the calls about women's rights and the safety of children are sort of overblown and that we should be accepting these people to sort of go with whatever they say they need to do. But now, as soon as it's become more mainstream and cool to withdraw support from Stonewall, he's decided to do it too.
I mean, Susie, he's a Labour man, is Stephen Fry, and he has now decided it's all right to do this because actually I'd argue the Health Secretary, Wes Streeton, has argued that it's all right to do this as well. Is this a sign of, you know, a rat running down a drain pipe?
I mean, look, ultimately, I mean, I would go with the view of, you know, it's better now that he's coming out and, you know, speaking this way. And I'm very proud of Wes Streeton. You know, I know you guys are all very critical of Labour, but this... Wes Streeton is the best health secretary this country has had in over a decade. Nope, I'm telling you now, I'm telling it before it comes. I've known Wes for many years. He's going to do the business on the health service and he is going to turn it around. But he's also going to do a whole lot of reform, which is absolutely necessary. And what I love about Wes, he just doesn't shy away from difficult subjects and he's very true to what he believes. And it's absolutely right that he's come out on the right side of this. You know, I worked for years with children. And I think, you know, I've had concerns about this for years, and I'm just very glad that we've got a Labour Health Secretary that is backing the right way on this.
Well, we can ask the waspy women all about Labour backing their pledges, can't we?
Well, you know, that is, you know, the argument for that is what I would say is, look, I have compassion on anyone and anyone that's, you know, fought a hard, long campaign. But, you know, can you say, let's give whatever it is, whether it was $1 billion or however much money to these women over kids that have got, you know, damp bedrooms and kids
Labour
that are, you know...
to do that, right? It's like on the House of Lords as well, they pledged...
They did actually pledge. It was 2017 under Jeremy Corbyn where people held plaques up, not in our manifesto.
We've only got a minute left. Chloe, what's your view on this Stonewall reversal from Stephen Fry?
Well, look, I don't think we can tell for sure whether Stephen Fry is just going whichever way the wind blows or if he genuinely has changed his mind about Stonewall. There are plenty of people that loved the organisation in the past and do not like what they've transformed into today. As you say, Connie, he absolutely could be more outspoken on the way that women, children, etc., have been thrown under the bus by this trans movement. But I think we'll have to see what else he says in the future.
I think the issue is that he's only withdrawn his support because he was asked directly, so he hasn't come out himself, and that's why it feels so confusing. Well, he has, but
he might be scared
a very brief remark.
Look, the people like Stephen Fry, these lovies are so out of touch with reality. You know, if more of these had spoken out for women's rights and maybe, you know, stop this ideology being pushed on our kids and a normalisation of cutting off healthy body parts, we wouldn't be in the situation we are now. So he's trying to play both sides. Look, it's good that he's speaking out, but we need more, and they need to be more aggressive in their rhetoric.
All right. Now, still to come tonight, why is Oxford University lowering entry standards to meet diversity targets? Is this a bonkers step too far? But next, Rachel Reeves says Nigel Farage hasn't the faintest idea how to manage the economy. Is that a bit rich from Britain's faltering Chancellor? You're with the Saturday 5. We're live on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. If you're travelling over the Christmas period, it's certainly going to remain unsettled for central parts of the Mediterranean. As an area low pressure brings some strong winds, some heavy rain and also some snow to the higher levels. Something a little bit quieter for parts of Iberia, plenty of sunshine to be had here, but then down towards the Canaries, still the risk of some showers, although it will improve here as we approach Christmas Day itself. Temperatures in Madeira reaching around 20 degrees on Christmas Day.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? The Times. It's so funny the Times did this story because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. What's
I think, well, that passenger got through, or almost got through, one episode one James Bond
film.
movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink. Let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you know, commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
It's so
get
expensive.
Wi-Fi.
You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past years. Yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your messages. I've just been informed, a little bit of news. Viewers of the show who've been watching for some time will be well aware that I sometimes get into trouble on this show. No, not for my loud mouth, but because I read out the messages of one of our Your Say users called Grumpy Grandad. All too often I get into trouble. And I've just heard that Grumpy Grandad is in hospital. And I just wanted to give a shout out, if he's watching tonight, and say how much I value and love reading his comments every single time I'm on air, even when I'm not on air, and how much of a joy it is to know that someone like him is watching the show. So God bless you, Grumpy Grandad, and I hope you're keeping well. Keep your ticker up. Susan says, shout out to Grumpy Grandad as well. Richard says Oxford University needs root and branch reform. He says their weakness on academic standards cannot be tolerated. We'll get into that in just a second, because now it's time for our next debate. And I believe we're going dib-dab-dob.
Yes, it is me. So Rachel Reeves has the audacity to tell the businessman Farage that he hasn't got the faintest clue how to manage the economy. This is coming from the woman who has no business experience whatsoever. She spent most of her life as a public servant, aside from, don't forget that, 3 years as an economist. A woman in retail banking, that was. She has absolutely no idea. Her employment record and her budget shows this. We've now got the Bank of England saying that they are not going to cut interest rates anymore and that the economy is going to be flatlining as a consequence of this budget. All the wealthy people are running away from the country. This woman said that she wouldn't raise taxes on working people because she thought, I'll just do a big hike in capital gains tax and that will do the job to fix the problems with the economy. But then she found out that actually that makes wealth creators leave the economy. And HMRC told her that if you put up capital gain tax 10%, that we'll actually lose 2 billion quid a year. So then she was panicking, trying to put tax rises here, there and everywhere, stealing the fuel allowance from her pensioners and whatnot. She has got no idea what she is doing. Yet she's got the audacity to tell Nigel Farage that he hasn't got a clue. This is the man who is now surrounded by some of the most brilliant businessmen in the country and the world. He's got Elon Musk on side, who is the richest man in the world. Rachel Reeves has the audacity to say they won't know how to run the show. Give me a break. Now, The Telegraph gave Nigel the opportunity to respond to what Rachel Reeves had to say, and brilliantly he said, unlike Rachel from accounts, I have set up and run businesses for over 30 years, creating jobs and paying tax. Well done, Nigel. So my question to the panel is this the Labour Party throwing insults at reform because they're throwing their toys out the pram now that they can see that Nigel is looking like he might be the next Prime Minister?
Do you know, I think you're onto something there, and I think actually, ultimately, the fact of the matter is, they say, people like Elon Musk, they are so rich, richer than Croesus. How can they have any idea of what it's like at the bottom? Well, he built a business, right? He built several businesses that have gone on to international success on a scale of which has never been seen before. And Adam, meanwhile, a business owner, small to medium-sized business owner, a good pub, and he's struggling at the minute because of what they've done. And they have the goal to lecture Nigel Farage on his inability, supposedly, to run an economy. Well, I mean, I was about to swear there, but Adam, I guess the frustration that you feel, you must be of the same view. You'd much rather have Farage in there than these chances.
I would actually trust, I think, anyone rather than Rachel Reeves as being our Chancellor, because anyone with a brain would know what this budget was going to do. I've been on air on GB News, I've been on X and social media, saying that many of the things that they're going to implement come April will push prices up. Especially in my pub, they will cost businesses, they will cost jobs, even down to, my pub. I'm going to have to reduce some of my workers' shifts because I'm going to need to find about £600 a week more once all these budget policies are implemented. Now, that's £30,000 a year for a small pub. Where do we find that money, Darren? We either have to cut our workforce or we need to put our prices up.
Yeah.
I'd actually say we're going to have to do both. So what she's doing is she's costing jobs and she's going to fuel inflation as well because my suppliers are going to put their prices up. I'm going to have no other option but to do the same.
They say they're the government of growth. Well, Connie, I tell you what, the only growth that they're actually establishing in this country is mass migration. So
I know. And I think the arrogance is astounding, especially considering they're the most unpopular government in history this early into their tenure.
Yeah.
It is. I think they are just trying to deflect the fact that it's going so badly for them. And because the Labour government is so worried about the next election and the fact that so many people who might have voted for the Tories last time are now wanting to vote for reform, they're so worried that reform is going to get these extra votes. And so they need to do everything they can to sort of slag them off and say that they're not good enough.
All right, Susie.
Yes, you won't be surprised to hear that I don't agree with what anyone here is saying. Let's be honest. We've just had 14 years of a Conservative government that has left kids, learning in porter cabins, record waiting times on the NHS. The economy, did they do good on the economy? Was the economy in a good place? No. We've got record numbers on benefits in this country. That is the Tory record in this country. And then you've got the Labour Party that have come in, they've been in 5 months, and already everyone everyone saying, Rachel Reeves disaster, Keir Starmer. Well, let's just wait, shall we? Because I think you cannot have short fixes on the economy. In 2 years' time, you're going to see those houses being built. You're going to see people that want benefits going back to work because we've got an actual back-to-work programme. Yeah. Massive record investment in apprenticeships.
And 5 out of 7 of those...
Watch this place.
Speak to you again in a year's time. And by the way, Linda's written in with the cause of concern. She says, all too often guests have coughing fits on air. So is it beyond the wit of studio staff to place water within reach of them? I beg your pardon, Linda. I've got more water in here than most swimming pools. Honestly, we're inundated with water. It's like the English Channel. So it's not that. We look after our guests here at GB News, I promise. It is the season to be coffee. Anyway, Susie, speaking of coffee...
Yes.
Take us away. What have you got for us?
OK, so we've got a story today of Oxford, well, supposedly the Times in all their whatever intelligence saying that the Oxford University are lowering standards by allowing kids from poor backgrounds to get into their university. What is going on here is actually a programme that's been going on for over 20 years. I myself got into Cambridge University on 2 A's and a B rather than 3 A's because it was an acknowledgement that actually, you know, a kid that goes to Eton and a kid that goes to school in East London may or may not have had the same chances in life. They may have, but actually maybe the 1 in 10 hasn't had the same chances in life. So what they're acknowledging is actually you may want to have, you know, support structures in place to make sure that actually these kids are not excluded from some of the top universities in this country. I think it's fantastic that Oxford University are doing this. I think it's really sad that a small group of people think there is a problem here. This is about tapping into talent in this country. This is about breaking down barriers. This is about equal opportunity. And this is about saying there is gold everywhere in this country, from East London to Eton. And actually, we want things in place that say we're going to tap into that gold. We're not going to exclude kids.
East London to Eton isn't that far, really.
It's not that far.
Not that far.
But the gaps are far.
Right,
the gaps.
OK, but that's not the gap we're talking about here, though, is it?
No,
the
it's
gap
not.
Here is talking about... Let's be honest, whenever they say there's a diversity drive, they just mean getting white kids out.
No, I don't think that is. What do you mean? I'm a white kid. Yeah. I'm a white kid from a working-class background. And what's fascinating is, in this country, it is actually white working-class kids that are the most deprived.
Yeah,
so I don't think this...
Why is that, though? Because we prioritise other kids because they say that that's where the gap is, when it's not where the attainment gap is.
Well, fascinatingly, that's why this is not about all those other issues. This is definitely not wokery and left-wing la-la-la. That is not what's going on here. This is about saying you've got kids from different backgrounds and they do not all start in the same place. Some of them start 10 steps behind. And so it's absolutely fine to have interventions in place that say, actually, we want kids from all backgrounds, all walks of life, getting into our top universities.
But I think that Oxford have already done what they need to do.
You went to Oxford.
Yeah, so they have a system, a contextual flagging system, so you will get flags on your application if, for example, you are the first person in your family to go to university. If you come from a postcode with poor attainment, not many people going to university, you get a contextualised GCSE score, which makes sense of how you did relative to those in your school. So that means, because Oxford and so have workplaces realised that in the days when they just took Etonians, actually, they weren't taking the creme de la creme, because a lot of these kids were not that bright but got good grades because they had teachers who spoon-fed them. So they have put a great system in place that makes sure that they do get kids who are good quality students, but not going too far down the positive discrimination route. I think having quotas is going a step too far. And you've got to bear in mind, a lot of these courses, they've only got 1 or 2 places at that college for that course.
All right, Connie, you're still at university.
Yes, and I mean, I'd like to ask you, Susie, why do you think it is the responsibility of one of the most prestigious universities in the world to basically level out the outcomes of our awfully unequal education system? Surely that should be the responsibility of your beloved Labour government.
No, I think, you know what? We need to tackle it from all sides. Do you know what makes this country great? Is that we do not have those barriers there, and we're doing everything in our power to remove those barriers. Honestly, I find it so shocking. I spent 20 years working in East London with bright and gifted kids who, before they're even out of their mum's wombs, their futures are decided. I don't want to live in a country like that. I don't want our top universities to be dominated by people from certain backgrounds and certain schools. And actually, we're greater when there's equality, always.
Unfortunately, your beloved Labour Party is just decided to tax private education.
Yeah, well,
so people from working class backgrounds and middle class are now going to struggle.
We'll come back to you. Loads more to come on the show, including our big interview live from Berlin, after, of course, that tragic Christmas market terror attack in the city of Magdeburg last night. We'll see you after this very short break.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. We're looking ahead to Christmas after a cold and very windy day on Sunday. The weather does look like it's settling down towards Christmas itself, and for all of us feeling a good deal milder. But before we get there, we still have this area low pressure close by. Note the tightly packed isobars indicating some very windy weather, especially across more northern and western parts. We do have warnings in force throughout Sunday, so if you do have any travel plans, do allow some extra time for your journeys. Away from the wind, we'll see plenty of showers moving in, especially across more northern parts, where we'll see some of the showers turn into sleet and snow, especially across the high ground. So we could just see a little bit of ice around first thing on Sunday. But for most, really, Sunday is going to be a day of sunshine and scattered showers. The far north of Scotland, however, we could just see a longer spell of rain arriving here, and again that could potentially be a bit of a mix of rain, sleet and snow. But back to showers really for Northern Ireland and Northern England. Again, across the high ground, easily going to be falling as sleet and snow. Similar story for Wales, but I think for many southern parts of England, any showers will be falling mainly as rain. And then moving towards the afternoon, very little changes. I think the best of the brightest weather will be across parts of East Anglia and the southeast of England. And for all of us, with the winds coming in from the northwest, it's going to be feeling a bitterly cold day. Could still see gales or severe gales in the north, and factor in the strength of the wind. Temperatures on a thermometer could get up as high as 7 degrees, but probably close to freezing for some of us as you add on that wind. So Monday starts off pretty cold, could see a widespread frost, but some sunshine to greet us as we start the week. But as we go through the course of the day, cloud and outbreaks of rain arrive in from the west, and that's going to herald the milder theme as we head towards Christmas Day itself. But unfortunately, it's going to come with a lot of cloud, so for most of us, it's going to be a grey Christmas this year rather than a white one.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joining me now is food historian and author of Christmas with Dickens, Pen Vogler. Pen, let's start with Christmas Carol. Did A Christmas Carol change Britain's view of Christmas?
I think it did, enormously. Before then, people were beginning to think, as they do now, that Christmas might be being a little bit commercial. It was too much food and drink, not enough kind of seriousness or not enough kind of love and family. And what Dickens did with A Christmas Carol was show people who were coming to the cities, who were kind of losing their rural history, a new way of celebrating Christmas, that a real, just a family could get together and love and kind of get around the table together. And whereas before, a lot of those kind of Christmas dishes would have been seasonal, lots of people would have eaten them at different times of the year, Dickens does two things. He takes the goose, which is what the Cratchits are going to eat, and he turns it to a turkey, much bigger, meatier, kind of more generous. And then he takes this thing that he never calls Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's no Christmas pudding. He only calls it plum pudding, and he anchors it to that day. And interestingly, after then, people start publishing recipes for Christmas pudding, and it starts getting its name, Christmas pudding, from plum pudding. And I think all of that really comes from A Christmas Carol.
You say becomes a Christmas pudding almost immediately after A Christmas Carol is published.
Yes, I mean, it's occasionally called Christmas pudding before, but not often. And then a very famous for the time, the kind of Delia Smith of her day, lady called Eliza Acton, publishes a recipe called The Author's Christmas Pudding in 1845. And we know she's a big Dickens fan because she sent a copy of her cookbook to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Saturday night, my friends, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, alongside Adam Brooks, Connie Shaw, Chloe Dobbs and Susie Stride. A big interview live from Berlin coming up after the tragic Christmas market terror attack in the city of Magdeburg last night claimed several innocent lives, including a toddler. It's 7 p.m, my friends, and this is the Saturday 5. Plus, we'll get stuck into Lord Mandelson himself in tonight's Saturday Scrap. Is he really the absolute moron that one of Donald Trump's campaign managers says he is? Well, we'll discuss. We'll also bring you tonight's fiery bunch of 5 debates, as well as answering your questions in Ask the 5. Send them through to gbnews.com/your say. Lots of questions about what degree Susie did at Cambridge. We'll find out after this. First of all, though, it's your Saturday Night News with Sophia Wensler.
Darren, thank you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. Your top story from the GB Newsroom. At least 5 people, including a 9-year-old child, have been killed after a car drove into crowds at a Christmas market in Germany. German media are naming the alleged suspect as Taleb al-Abdullah Mohsen, a 50-year-old Saudi doctor with reported Islamophobic views. He's been arrested and faces charges of murder and attempted murder as Chancellor Olaf Scholz promises a full investigation. German prosecutors are saying the motive is still unclear, that the attackers' dissatisfaction of the treatment of Saudi refugees in Germany may have been a factor. A memorial service in the city's cathedral is taking place to remember all those impacted. Meanwhile, outside the cathedral, people have gathered in what appears to be a protest following yesterday's attack. Now, time is running out for pensioners to claim pension credit and secure their winter fuel payment for the 2024 to 2025 year, with the deadline just hours away. Online applications close at 11:59 p.m. and phone lines are already closed. Around 760,000 pensioners could miss out, with the benefit topping up weekly incomes and unlocking extra support. The change, announced by Chancellor Rachel Reeves, means winter fuel payments now go only to those on means-tested benefits, slashing recipients from 11.4 million to just 1.5 million. In other news, a 77-year-old environmental campaigner has been returned to jail after problems with an electronic tag to monitor. Gaya Dilap was sentenced to 20 months in prison for being part of a group that blocked the M25 in November 2022. The Just Stop Oil activist grandmother from Bristol was released early on a home detention curfew, but it was not possible to attach an electronic tag to her ankle due to her health condition, so she's now been recalled to prison. And the Prince and Princess of Wales are funding a new programme to tackle mental health challenges in rural Norfolk communities. Partnering with Norfolk and Waveney Mind, the 2-year pilot will provide counselling and targeted support for the 1,500 residents around the Sandringham estate. Set to launch in 2025, the initiative will include training for local employers to address issues like rural isolation and farming-related pressures. It's hoped the project could become a blueprint for mental health support on other rural estates across the UK. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to the Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Sophia. It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for another very lively hour. Lots of your messages. Go on then, Susie, tell us.
Well, your listeners may or may not like this, but I did geography, which is my great passion.
Oh, wow.
As in, like, human geography, you know, learning about how you change the world for the better, you know, all that kind of thing, not colouring in lines that everyone always thinks. And
Theresa May did geography, right?
Theresa May did geography, as did Andy Burnham.
Well,
yeah,
that says a lot. That says a lot. Right, OK, we'll crack on with tonight's big interview. Now, at least 5 people, including a child, have been killed, and at least 200 people injured in last night's tragic attack on a Christmas market in Magdeburg, northern Germany. Now, the arrested suspect has been named. Taleb A is what the actual German press are reporting, a 50-year-old Saudi citizen who arrived in Germany in 2006 and had worked as a doctor, with a weakness in security blockades around the venue actually being investigated. I seem to remember people saying, well, high-skill migration, no problem. A doctor committing this kind of thing, not good. Now, to discuss this, I'm pleased to welcome Julian Reichelt, a founder and editor-in-chief of NUS? News. Oh, it's pronounced news. I beg your pardon. I thought NUS, the National Union of Students. That doesn't sound correct. Of news. Julian, thank you very much for joining me. Could you just give us the latest on what we know and what's been established?
Well, the latest and very tragic news coming out of Magdeburg certainly is that the child killed in this horrible attack is a 9-year-old boy who will not live to see Christmas, and his mother put out a heartbreaking obituary on Facebook, and that's pretty much what is on everybody's mind and everybody's heart now. The big political scandal shaping up here is that the German authorities were warned over and over and over again that this person who turned then out to be that terrorist driving that car into the Christmas market would be up to something just like that. He had announced to friends, he had announced to pretty much random people he had met on social media that he would die this year, that he was planning something big, that he would carry his war to the German people, that he was very unhappy with how Germans behaved towards the things he wanted to achieve. It had a lot to do with bringing more refugees to Germany.
Wow.
And apparently, even the Saudi authorities, the Saudi intelligence services, had warned the German intelligence service that this was someone, that this was an individual with terrorist tendencies. And then another warning came in to the official authority here in Germany that deals with all of the migration. A young lady sent them direct messages through X, actually, recently, and told them this exact plan, exactly what he was up to, that he was dangerous, that he had told her he was plotting something like that. And they just responded basically with a formal response saying, you know, if you're concerned about someone committing a crime, please go to the police. So this crime was reported in advance before it happened, 2 or 3 or 4 in 4 different ways to different authorities. No one did anything. So these people who are dead now basically are dead because different parts of German authorities did not respond to very, very specific warnings. And I presume that will be the huge political story of the next days.
And Julian, I mean, you've posted about this, I believe, as well, about Elon Musk's interventions over the past 24 hours. And he has said that actually, well, he's advocated a vote for the Alternative for Deutschland. Now, to what extent do you think this horrible, horrible incident, which some are saying was used, has been perpetrated by a man whose sympathies are with Elon Musk and with the Alternative for Deutschland and against Islam will be used by the AfD in the upcoming February election.
Well, what you're referring to, this whole motive thing, whose side was this guy on, who was really, that is still very murky. I wouldn't, you know, there's a lot of report about being...
It's a bit sick. It's a bit twisted.
I wouldn't be too certain about that. You know, I've covered as a reporter the Middle East for a while, and I don't want to bore your audience by going into that Shia-Sunni divide and that constant battle that is going on in the region. But it seems, and that is something that you have seen in the UK, that we are seeing here in Germany, foreign conflicts being imported into our societies and then killing people here. And to me, it more looks like a disgruntled Shia Muslim who was very unsatisfied with the regime in his home country, Saudi, and he kind of projected that on Germans. You know, he was trying to rally against the regime at his home. Germans weren't listening to him. So, you know, the Shia-Sunni thing came out and he drove his car into a Christmas market. I wouldn't be too sure about like Islamophobia so far. There seem to be a lot of other different possible motives. But to your question, how is the AfD going to use it? You know, this was a guy who was committed of crimes, who has committed crimes before. He was in German court. He shouldn't have been in the country. He should have left this country, you know, years ago when he was first in court. I think it was in 2013. But then recently, over the past 2 years, he has openly threatened to kill Germans. He has threatened it on social media. And, you know, I know there's a lot of talk about the whole, you know, freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, also in the UK. You know, if you post the most minor insult here in Germany on anyone in power, on any politician, the police will come knocking on your door the next morning.
Well, it's the same here. It's the same here.
I know, I'm aware. It's a shame. But if you post on X, you know, this year I will die, I will carry the war back to the German people, I will kill lots, I will drive a car into them. You post all that. Apparently nothing happened. So the story here is not, was this guy Islamophobic or who did he like on social media? The story here is this guy should have not been in the country. He should have been deported years ago, but at least, you know, when he started making those threats. So obviously, you know, our elections, we have early elections because the German government collapsed. It will be in February. The AfD is, you know, second now in the polls, right after the traditional conservatives. You know, the left is panicking that this may, you know, turn around the whole election. You know, you have now people on the streets in Magdeburg demonstrating again. That's, you know, normal people, but also, you know, right-wing people. This may turn violent. This will be a major disruption to the upcoming election. And what's interesting right now, when what is going on now, the media, which is predominantly left in Germany, is trying to spin this into a right-wing attack because that guy has liked, you know, some random AfD article and an Elon Musk tweet. So they're now saying he's right-wing. No one is doing it, obviously, you know, because if you look at the act he committed, the layout of that crime is the layout of, you know, an Islamist terror attack. So no one is buying that this guy from Saudi Arabia is a right-wing attacker, but that's what they're trying.
Yeah, exactly. They are. I've seen that all online. I've seen that all. Connie, the attacks on Elon Musk for voicing concerns around this, and of course the arrests on people who voiced dissent on these issues. This is happening more and more in Germany as well as Britain, as Julian says. So to what extent do we share the same issues, and to what extent are politicians in both countries directly responsible?
I mean, I think it is the responsibility of the politicians of any country to be completely transparent with their public, and clearly that's not what's happening here. I mean, it's a very confusing picture as to what motivated this person, because it does, all of the evidence seems just very unlikely.
And Julian's saying there, let's not get our knickers in a twist over this right now because we don't have all of the facts in front of us, and that it's a bit fishy, which I would agree with. Chloe, the question for Julian, I mean, the European elections are going to be interesting if they're moving to the right and Elon Musk is putting his money where his mouth is, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Elon Musk's voice is very powerful. I mean, he has so many ex-followers. Every single one of his posts seems to get tens of millions of views. I think that that will potentially have a big effect on the election. I think one question for Julian is, do you think that, I was quite surprised to hear that this guy is a doctor. Do you think that how educated an individual is has an effect on how likely they are to commit an attack like this? Do you think this was just quite unlikely that this guy was a doctor, or do you think that the rhetoric we've heard before that people who are less educated are more likely to commit these attacks is wrong?
I think the bitter truth coming out of this attack, and I think your question is insanely important, because we're discussing integration and how can we tell if people are integrated, how can we tell if they love or hate our country, and so far, work, and especially being a doctor, was kind of seen as an indicator that okay, he was a doctor, he has arrived in our society. The truth is, when it comes to illegal migration from these countries, from countries that do have a major issue with Islamism, with jihadism, with Islamic terrorism, with all these sort of political backgrounds, with the Sunni-Shia divide, no job will ever tell you how integrated that person is into society. And that's what they're trying to do now in Germany. They are now trying, when it comes to, the million people from Syria we took in, they are now, and we have no idea who most of them are, the politics are now trying to tell us, look, but half of them have jobs. That means they are fully integrated, and even 5,000 of them are doctors. I've covered these countries. I've spent a decade in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in all those countries. And if they have a job, will never tell you if they really are integrated into your society and if they agree with the values of your society. So that is what they are trying to spin right now, but I would fundamentally disagree there. A guy being a doctor, apparently, which is even stranger, this guy was a doctor in a mental institution. How can someone who's clearly crazy, who has posted insane, lunatic stuff for 2 years on social media, be a doctor in a mental institution, and you still tell people, no, it's under control? We know, he's well integrated. No one knew who he was. He was a doctor in a mental institution, although he was crazy himself, and it was, out there for everyone to see. This story, we have no idea who is here? Who are these people? We have zero idea.
Well, exactly. On that very point, Julian, just to bring this conversation to a close, so brief remarks from you. Angela Merkel, what does this do? These attacks that have happened before, 2016 Berlin, of course, was attacked. What does this say about Angela Merkel's legacy?
Well, go to a German Christmas market these days and you will see Angela Merkel's legacy, because I'm old enough, I'm only 44, but old enough to remember Christmas markets before Angela Merkel's policy. And it didn't have, barriers around them. They now, I don't know if you're aware of these, little toys, Lego, that kids play. They call it in Germany, they call it Merkel Lego, because it has these little dots on which they put around Christmas markets to protect them from people driving through them. And I can tell you, before Merkel's policies, we didn't need concrete barriers around our Christmas markets. We were fine. That is the big change that came with this policy. Before that policy, no concrete barriers on Christmas markets. After these policies, lots of concrete barriers. And those barriers don't stop people with knives. So, you can see the effect, and you're welcome to visit them, if you have 3 days left.
All right, Julian, thank you very much for your insight and for your company. I very much enjoyed that. Julian's the founder and editor-in-chief of News in Germany. Now, still to come tonight, our panel, they battle away with our bunch of five as well, and including the Justin Welby donation, sensationally rejected by a children's charity. Should a children's charity really be objecting to receiving a donation in this way? But next, Susie and Adam fight it out in tonight's Saturday Scrap. After Lord Mandelson was appointed to government in actually leading, in advising the British response to Trump's appointment as President even, he's actually been branded an absolute moron by one of Trump's team. What say you about this? Well, what say them? They'll debate it and bash it out. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Small mouthful of David Walliams now and what he's revealing, what he's talking about. Josh, where do you think this goes? Because there is a lot of speculation about David, who he is, what he is. Where do you think this takes us now?
Oh, I think he's an absolute sweetheart. I mean, it was such a joy to spend as much time with him as I did. And the where it takes us is simply that I think we're growing out of, I suppose, the fairly infantile idea that we might have had about gender and sexuality, especially over the past sort of 5 to 10 to 15 years, where the culture wars have gotten so hot that it's become very, very difficult to talk about any of these issues sensibly without feeling like you're going to get pilloried or attacked from either side. And so Uncomfortable Conversations is a show where we try to have those conversations sort of heedless of treading on eggshells or triggering.
And do you think, Josh, that these conversations will become less uncomfortable when you get people like Walliams talking about it and who he is and where he's going, and therefore more acceptable for other people to open up and say, I don't know who I am or what I am, but I know I'm different?
That would be my hope. Look, I'm married to a guy, so I have sort of bona fides on the gay card, and I always felt that it was somewhat of a caricature the way the gay community or lobby, so to speak, insisted on a certain way of talking, a certain way of dressing, a certain way of voting, a certain way of dancing, that you can only be a good gay if you're wearing arseless chaps and straddling a giant inflatable penis while you're going down Oxford Street during Gay Pride. You know, like, I always thought, can't we have a very big tent? And I think what David is doing here is being honest, being upfront, saying it doesn't mean I have to join a team, it doesn't mean I'm any different from the person you knew.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for your emails and messages. Not Far Off says, I wanted to hear what Susie and Adam had to say about your last guest's remarks. Adam, what did you think of that?
I think as politicians in Germany, in the UK and across Europe position themselves how they can use this terrible tragedy to gain votes, I just want to mention the poor kid and the people that have died in that needless tragedy. And sometimes we have to step back and think of those families, those friends, and how we move forward as a society.
I mean, Susie, Angela Merkel got it there in what Julian had to say. Do you think it's right to pick through the legacies of these politicians and actually ask what they've done to our countries?
I mean, look, might be the only time I agree with Adam over there, but I just think, absolutely, I just feel so sad that 5 people have died a few days before Christmas and 200 people injured. It is just so sad, and obviously we had this only but a few years ago. And, you know, I think, you know, my comment on it would be we need to just do everything in our power to make sure this never happens again, you know.
Like leaving the ECHR?
No, I don't think that is what's going to stop, you know, evil, mentally ill people, as this guy clearly was.
He wasn't deported, ultimately, was he? What do you think actually would stop people doing that?
I mean, I think, you know, it's going to have to be, you know, probably like one of those 5-pronged strategies. But look, this guy, when you read about this guy's been critical of Islam, critical of Saudi Arabia, and then posting weird stuff like the Germans are responsible for Plato or Socrates dying. I mean, like, clearly he was mentally ill. He was, you know, odd.
Yeah.
You know,
but I think he shouldn't have been in Germany.
Fascinating that the guy picked up on how people are integrated. I think that's very important.
All right, right. It's time, my friends, for this. Yes, indeedy, tonight's main event, and you've all got front row seats. An absolute moron. That's not me insulting any of my guests. That's what Donald Trump's co-campaign manager called Lord Mandelson, the new UK-US ambassador. Chris Lascivita's rather blunt remarks came after Mandelson described the president-elect as a danger to the world. Well, is he right? Is Mandelson a moron, or is Prezi Trump a danger to the world? Is he the right man to be negotiating on Britain's behalf with the US regime? Well, seconds out, it's round one. Adam in the red corner, Susie in the blue. Ding dong, take it away. Which one of you's got
Adam, go first.
Look, I disagree that he's a moron, because that would suggest he's stupid. He's not stupid. I think he's very calculated and very agenda-driven. I think it's possibly the worst person we could have sent over to America to represent us. His previous comments on Donald Trump are insulting. Why would President Trump and America want to deal with this man? Let's remember, the US is our biggest trade partner. Why would we send someone that has already antagonised their president, that has been disgraced, really, in our politics? He had to resign twice from government over scandals. This is a man that pushed for a second referendum and ignoring the 19 million odd votes for Brexit. You know, this is a man that admitted that him and his Labour government opened the floodgates to immigrants in this country. They went out searching for workers and Labour voters. Why would we want this man representing us in America? I think it's almost trolling what Starmer has done. He's either not clever enough to realise, or there is an agenda behind this. This is a man that was very close to the EU. We know there's friction between the EU and America. Again, why would we send this man over there? You know, I'm baffled by it. There has to be a good reason. I'd love Starmer to tell us why.
Well, you've got the next best thing to Keir Starmer. You've got Susie Stride, and I'm going to tell you why. I mean, I can't see the argument in this. You've got some low-down guy that has virtually no influence on Donald Trump calling Lord Mandelson a moron. Well, you know, I'm sure Trump will put him in some box somewhere. You don't have Donald Trump saying it. You don't have any of these key people that have been put in key positions. You don't have Elon Musk saying it. Why? Because they know exactly who Lord Mandelson is. They know that, yes, maybe he did make some negative comments about him. Who else did that, I wonder? Oh, I remember J.D. Vance, who then was appointed as his vice president. So let's be honest, actually Trump, for all his fascinating personality, is actually quite forgiving, because he forgave J.D. Vance. And the funny thing about Donald Trump is, I think what he does like, he likes powerful people. And he's absolutely, I think, going to get on very well with Lord Mandelson for a number of reasons. Lord Mandelson is a political heavyweight. We're talking 5 decades. I mean, I look at the Tories and I'm like, they've got Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch. I mean, like, my days, these people are so weak on so many levels. You would put him possibly on a par with, what's his name? I can't remember, the guy that's just become the Chancellor of Oxford. You maybe put him on a... William Hague. William Hague's got a bit of that oomph about him. But Lord Mandelson's got that oomph. He's got the experience. But also the funny thing about Donald Trump is he loves our royal family and he loves our history. And what have you got in Lord Mandelson? Well, he is the great-grandson, I'll let you come in a second, great-grandson of, what's his name, Herbert Morrison, who was in the Attlee government, the post-war government, that great government. And I know Donald Trump's going to love it. He's going to love it.
I can't believe you're talking about a man that has links to Jeffrey Epstein. He was pictured with Jeffrey Epstein after Jeffrey was arrested on child trafficking of children. I mean, you know, I wouldn't trust myself around a child trafficker, let alone have a photo with them. What does that say about his judgment?
All right, and we do have to say alleged links to Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, he's been photoed with a guy, so he's linked through photographs and meeting him.
Mandelson isn't here to defend himself on that particular point, but Susie, I will let you answer.
Yeah, do you know what I just want to say? Look, it is absolutely essential that we have a good relationship with America. It is absolutely crucial, whatever anyone may think about Donald Trump, that we build a good relationship with him. I can think of no one better than Lord Mandelson to do this. You know, he's level levels of experience across the globe, his connections with key business leaders. He's going to do a great job.
He's been embroiled in scandal.
Watch this space. No.
Yeah, I mean, do you, Connie, on that point, if you've been involved with scandal in the past, do you think you can be redeemed in the future?
I mean, there isn't really much to say when we're talking about the person we're sending over to speak to Donald Trump, so I don't think he has much of a, there isn't much...
Do you think they should have sent Nige?
Well, I don't really know who else they would have sent, because it seems like nearly every leader in the Labour Party has said something rude about Donald Trump. So,
That's a good point. That is a good point. That actually they couldn't pick anyone else because they've all said mean words about Donald.
I mean, are they really scraping the barrel that much?
Yes,
I mean, that just
we're
shows...
talking about the Labour Party,
Yeah,
Chloe.
I mean, it just shows how little talent there is there in the Labour Party. I mean, this is just really stupid. This guy, he said that Donald Trump is a danger to the world and a little short of a white nationalist and racist.
Yeah, but J.D. Vance called Trump an American Hitler, and he's now his vice president. So, I mean, it just doesn't stand, because the whole...
J.D. Vance has been on a MAGA journey, right? He's become more Make America Great Again in his thinking and ideology and outlook, and you can't argue that about Peter Mandelson, right? He is so metropolitan that he might as well be a tube line.
No, I don't agree. I think you've got... Look, we'll be really careful here. Look, for the good of the country, we want good people there. I think the Tories are the ones that are struggling and scraping the barrel. Where is their leadership? I genuinely almost feel sorry for them. We've got great people. We put Lord Mandelson there.
Yeah.
He's going to do a great job. Watch this space.
Well, we'll see. But I'll let the viewers decide who won that one. Still ahead, we're going to answer your questions in Ask the Five. You at home get to ask them, so get them in. gbnews.com/your say. Next, though, was a children's charity wrong to reject a donation from disgraced former Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby? Surely anyone's donations to help kids is a worthwhile accepting thing to do, is it not? We'll debate that and much more in tonight's Bunch of Five. You're with the Saturday Five. We're live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. We're looking ahead to Christmas after a cold and very windy day on Sunday. The weather does look like it's settling down towards Christmas itself, and for all of us feeling a good deal milder. But before we get there, we still have this area low pressure close by. Note the tightly packed isobars indicating some very windy weather, especially across more northern and western parts. We do have warnings in force throughout Sunday, so if you do have any travel plans, do allow some extra time for your journeys. Away from the wind, we'll see plenty of showers moving in, especially across more northern parts, where we'll see some of the showers turn into sleet and snow, especially across the high ground. So we could just see a little bit of ice around first thing on Sunday. But for most, really, Sunday is going to be a day of sunshine and scattered showers. The far north of Scotland, however, we could just see a longer spell of rain arriving here. And again, that could potentially be a bit of a mix of rain, sleet and snow. But back to showers really for Northern Ireland and Northern England. Again, across the high ground, easily going to be falling as sleet and snow. Similar story for Wales, but I think for many southern parts of England, any showers will be falling mainly as rain. And then moving towards the afternoon, very little changes. I think the best of the brightest weather will be across parts of East Anglia and the southeast of England. And for all of us, with the winds coming in from the northwest, it's going to be feeling a bitterly cold day. Could still see gales or severe gales in the north, and factor in the strength of the wind. Temperatures on the thermometer could get up as high as 7 degrees, but probably close to freezing for some of us as you add on that wind. So Monday starts off pretty cold, could see a widespread frost, but some sunshine to greet us as we start the week. But as we go through the course of the day, cloud and outbreaks of rain arrive in from the west, and that's going to herald the milder theme as we head towards Christmas Day itself. But unfortunately, it's going to come with a lot of cloud. So for most of us, it's going to be a grey Christmas this year rather than a white one.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for all of your messages about tonight's topics. Well, we're getting in lots of Ask the Five, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much for sending them in. Brian says, Adam won hands down, but Mark says Stride is going to take off like a helicopter. It says it will very.
I'm taking that as a positive.
Yeah, that's shows gumption. And Peter says Mandelson is full of sleaze and corruption. He's a rabid EU fanatic and hates this country. And Chris says, I knew Peter well 20 years ago. He was sharp, he was entertaining, but he was arrogant. He's a 20th century fossil, a catastrophic appointment. Now, Chris didn't hold back there. Right, OK, what have we got coming up for you next? It might be time for this. Yes, indeed, it's time for our bunch of five. Adam, what have you got for us tonight?
Right, the Home Office is indoctrinating civil servants with a distorted history of the British Empire. They are pushing left-wing nonsense on our civil servants. They're pushing white privilege, unconscious bias. I hate that term. Civil servants are meant to deliver the work of the ministers. They're meant to work for us. They do not need this nonsense. I read Suella Braverman's tweet earlier how she was going to try and turn this around. But it's a dangerous progression here in this country, and you know it could lead to civil servants really working against governments in the future. It needs to change.
Yeah, and Suella says she did try to combat this, but she wasn't in office long enough to do anything about it. But when you're being told that as a Home Office Minister, the Interior Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, that actually your past is an inherently bad one, how can you possibly champion that country in any meaningful way? It's just indicative, isn't it, of a rot at the heart of the country, Connie?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I don't understand why the civil service clearly has... I mean, it's not just this topic, it's everything to do with privilege and making sure that we recognise our privilege. I don't understand. It seems like they're guilty. They feel guilty about... They're paranoid about something. And they're trying to sort of prove that they're not this elitist institution. But at the end of the day, of course, it's going to be elitist in some ways.
It should be.
Who are we going to rely on to run our country?
Right, Connie, what have you got for us then?
So, Newhouse Academy near Manchester has had to apologise after a phone that they confiscated off a child managed to record a 4-hour conversation a private conversation between staff members in which they basically called children rude names, and they've had to come out and apologise, and the parents who are complaining about this have now started to question whether the school is a safe place to send their children, as though these words are actual violence, which, as we know, is a very common criticism, that apparently words can be violence these days. But it's funny because obviously these teachers are only having to apologise because they've been caught, as if these conversations don't go on in private all the time. And it's true, children can be little, you know, whatsos and, you know, so, like, I think these are parents who can't bear the idea that when they send their children to school, they're not always actually as well behaved as they'd like.
And Adam, surely if your child has been a little sugar, then you've got a right as a teacher to sit in your staff room and criticise. Yes, exactly.
I've got 3 kids, so I agree with you there. I mean, it does also depend on what was said. If there were some really hurtful personal insults about those kids, I mean, I'd like, you know, it could there be a future relationship teacher-pupil? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we've all got to let off a bit of steam sometimes, but I do think teachers and parents need to lead by example. If you're going to tell kids not to bully each other, hold yourself to the same standard.
I would agree with that.
I'm with the teachers all the way. If I was in that position, I'd be calling the little swines.
And it's not as though students don't, talk and say mean things about their teachers behind their backs. I mean, I just think surely, like
my PE teacher walked in on me once at having a big moan about her, and
there you go.
It's a bit awkward, I have to say.
Yes, it's awkward, but that's because that conversation was meant to be private.
I mean, yeah, of course, no one wants to have their conversations monitored all the time.
And teachers are put under, at the minute, extraordinary pressure. Even Tony Blair's saying that actually we should start prosecuting parents who have naughty kids because teachers are just going through the hell, with even some of them being assaulted.
Yeah, I think Tony Blair's right on that. I think it's really important. If you've got kids in school, you know how important it is that, a classroom is calm and people can learn. And actually, it was right for him to bring that up.
Yeah, all right. Right, I want to give a shout-out to this lady who is a complete hero in my eyes and very brave woman. She is called Izzy Dew, and Izzy is a Tottenham-based designer, and she recovered 7 mobile phones, stolen mobile phones, after chasing down a thief for nearly 2 kilometres. Now, I couldn't do that. I couldn't run, down the block, never mind 2 kilometres. And it's a very revealing story because she goes to the Met Police, right, and she's got her data on her phone. It tracks where these things are these days. And she tracked down this phone and she said, it's here. And the police said, oh, nothing can be done here. I'm too busy checking Darren Grimes' tweets. And she used a laptop to track her device, and she ended up finding the rightful getting 3 phones back to the rightful owners by tracking down these people, grabbing one of them and actually managing to wrestle her phones back and finding a plastic bag which contained these phones. But Londoners, frankly, shouldn't have to take vigilante action in order to procure their own gear, right? We should have police where you're able to say, look, I know where my phone is. It's your job to go and get it. And the priorities of the police, that's what I'm worried about. So whilst I think this lass, Izzy, is a total hero and brave, actually, because they could have had knives, that it's a wider question to the police, ultimately.
I was going to say, I had the exact same situation last summer where someone stole my phone. I got the tracker, I could see exactly where it was. So I went down there with my mate and I was knocking on doors. But actually, the radius is much bigger on that Find My iPhone or whatever it is. And I saw a police officer and he said, we can't intervene in these things because the radius is so big. So it was a complete nightmare because I could see my phone, bobbing around. Another time I was also mugged and I chased the guy, grabbed his waist, but he got away and the police came and I thought they'd get him, but they didn't. But ultimately, you don't really want people doing that because obviously people could get hurt and whatnot. But I don't know if I'd lay criticism at the police because I think they're doing the best job they can, and I think ultimately what we want this year is to see crime come down by hopefully this Labour government investing in police and supporting them.
Well, you'll see crime come down, but only because you're banging up everybody that says some hurty words online.
Well, I hope not, because that is definitely not the priority.
Well, it is.
Well, the priority has got to be antisocial behaviour for me in people's communities. Yeah.
All right, Chloe, what have you got?
Well, it seems like you cannot stop these woke lefties from transing kids, because despite, after having the CAS review, us deciding to outlaw puberty blockers, those very damaging drugs for children, the ex-CEO of Mermaids has set up an organisation called Anne Trans Healthcare, which is exploiting a loophole to make sure that kids in Britain still get their puberty blockers. Yes, they're going to use non-UK organisations, so doctors in the EU, for example, to prescribe kids puberty blockers, and then you've got to go through the tunnel over to France or whichever country over there, pick your prescription up, then come back to the UK. I think this is absolutely horrifying. I think it's child abuse. My question to you guys would be, should we make sure that we close down this loophole, and will Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer have the guts to do it?
Quite frankly, I think Susie Green needs to be locked up, not least because of what she's doing now, but what she did to her own son, which was on his 16th birthday. He received a lovely 16th birthday present in the form of a vaginoplasty. She took him to Thailand because you can't get that surgery here. She took him to Thailand to have that happen to him.
How old?
He's 16. It was on his 16th birthday.
No.
She even joked about the fact that because his genitals weren't fully developed, there wasn't much to work with.
Sick.
I mean, this woman is sick, and it's so typical of parents who have trans their kids, who, for their own sanity, need to convince themselves that they did the right thing. So to do that, she's trying to do it to other kids, to sort of prove that she doesn't regret
These
what she
charities
did.
should lose their charitable status. That's ultimately what it ought to be. Right, Susie, what have you got for us?
So there's a story that is talking about how the Children's Society has rejected a donation from Justin Welby this Christmas. And I suppose my question to the panel is, do we think that's the right thing? I think it's an interesting one because it kind of suggests that, you know, Justin Welby himself is guilty of doing something wrong, which... Actually, what happened was he took institutional and personal responsibility for the wrongdoing that had happened, and that was the right thing for him to do. But this is, I suppose, a snub to him. He's, given a donation to a charity that he cares a lot about. I just wonder what the rest of the panel think.
I don't think they should turn down the money. No. I don't...
No, but my understanding is that this Children's Society, they help children who have experienced sexual abuse.
Oh,
so I think it is particularly relevant. Just on your point there,
but this is repenting, him repenting, right, by saying that I allowed something horrendous to happen and I'm giving this money to help children who are in those situations. I think that that's a laudable thing in a Christian country, to be able to forgive and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the other side of the argument, but also it seems a little bit too little, too late.
I mean, and he didn't commit the abuse himself. I think that would be a very, very different story. It was just he happened to
take the action that he should have done.
I mean, look, I would say there are lots of charities across this country that are in great need that will probably take that donation if that charity doesn't want to take it.
I understand it on principle, but I think we have to be utilitarian about these things sometimes. Like we can't do anything about anymore the fact that Justin Welby turned a blind eye or whatever he did, but there are children who need this help. So if that sum of money...
I also don't think he turned a blind eye.
Well, I mean, the charity might be thinking this might tarnish our reputation, we'll get fewer donations in the future. They might be thinking about that.
Well, the Church of England has a lot to answer for. A lot of stories are coming out.
Yeah.
A lot of stories
They
are
can't
coming
even
out.
choose a acting archbishop because there are that many of them who have got problems. Anyway, still ahead, we answer all your questions in Ask the Five. No topics are off limits. What hell have you unleashed upon us this week? You're with the Saturday Five. We're live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest Winter Sun forecast. If you're travelling over the Christmas period, it's certainly going to remain unsettled for central parts of the Mediterranean. There's an area of low pressure brings some strong winds, some heavy rain and also some snow to the higher levels. Something a little bit quieter for parts of Iberia, plenty of sunshine to be had here, but then down towards the Canaries, still the risk of some showers, although it will improve here as we approach Christmas Day itself. Temperatures in Madeira reaching around 20 degrees on Christmas Day.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A Jaguar has ditched its growling big cat logo as part of what can only be described as a woke rebrand. The badge that has been used for decades, look at it, beautiful, on the bonnets of luxury cars has been swapped for a curved geometric J badge. They've also released a brand new advert, look at it, for their rebrand, which prompted Elon Musk to ask if the company actually sold cars. I thought this was a wind-up. It's not. It's true. Joining me now to discuss this is the motoring journalist Amanda Stratton. Amanda, what on earth is going on at Jaguar? The car of James Bond, Batman, Arthur Daley has gone off the scale woke. Please make me make sense of it.
The E-Type is an absolutely iconic car, and it's important that people remember that, in fact, in its heyday, Jaguar was an incredibly prestigious brand, more so really than other British brands like Aston Martin, for example. But, you know, people in the industry are left sort of scratching their heads because you need to do something bold, you need to do something that catches people's attention, but you also need to stay true to who you are and what you are, and I'm not sure that this is it.
Amanda, that could be an advert for anything. It could be cat food. It could be Karl Lagerfeld. It could be literally anything apart from a Jag. Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, OK, we're talking about it. So we are talking about it, but we're not talking about it for the right reasons, are we?
And I think if I was going to be speculative here, I would like to think that this is actually all part of a cunning plan to get everybody talking about it. Yeah. So when they do launch the first new car that we're going to see, which, you know, people have been waiting, as I say, since 2001.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for all of your emails and messages about tonight's topic. Speaking of which, it's time for this. All right, let's see what hell you've unleashed upon us. We've got this one from Trisha. What if we just ignored the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, rulings? Adam?
Look, we've ignored the ECHR on prisoner voting rights before. What happened? Nothing. We can ignore them. Our governments choose not to ignore the ECHR.
Connie?
Well, as Adam says, to be honest, I'm not really sure what would happen. I mean, as it goes, it seems that not much, although I think that I imagine they would care a bit more if we did things about immigration.
I tell you what would happen. Sir Keir Starmer would get round his tables. This is a man who said he prefers Davos over Westminster. He would get around his dining tables with EU leaders who would all say how terrible this was, that Britain was standing up for itself. So he would never do it because, frankly, this man is utterly supine.
Agreed.
I think that we absolutely should be ignoring the ECHR rulings. France and Germany have done it to get rid of very dangerous people, so why on earth aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we clearly should ignore it on certain cases where you've got criminals trying to avoid being sent back home. That's not acceptable. But ultimately, I think there is something of respect internationally that we get as a country from having it. I would keep it. I'm happy to be unpopular for saying that.
Let's just leave, Darren.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right, Andy's written in. Andy says, how long does the public have to wait before their leaders take decisive action on illegal immigration? This, of course, coming after what has taken place in Germany when, as Julian told us earlier in the show, he should have actually been deported before now, obviously, and then yesterday would never have happened, Adam.
Look, we've got no chance with Labour kicking back on illegal immigration, especially those coming across on dinghies. They removed our only deterrent, the Rwanda scheme. Even immigrants or migrants on the shores of Calais said that would have deterred them. So we've got no chance. They're paying people from South America to go home. They're not tackling the real problem of illegal immigration.
All right, Chloe?
You'll have to wait until 2029. Hopefully then we'll have Farage in and he'll sort this mess out.
All right, next question. Alistair says, do you think the government work for the people or the people work for the government? Connie?
Well, it seems that the people are currently working for this Labour government with the rate at which NI tax is going up. But, yeah, as Chloe says, hopefully by 2029 it will be the other way round.
With which party?
I hope the Tory party with Kemi Badenoch in charge.
Susie?
Right, look, first of all, just very quickly on immigration, I can't believe what you were just saying there. It trebled under the Tories. We've already got 40%.
And Labour even weaker.
40% increase in people being deported back home. So I'm sorry, but we're doing the business on that. We're doing the business on that, and we'll continue to do the business on that.
Nonsense.
When it comes to whether the government serve the people serve the government, ultimately, government should be about service. We do have... Unfortunately, always there are politicians which seem to be in it for themselves. I think we have lots of great leaders at the moment, and I think wait over these next 5 years, the homes are going to be built, schools are going to be better, the economy is going to be set on a path to recovery, and I think the best days of this country are coming.
All right. Now, this is from Dennis. Dennis says, what are your New Year's resolutions, and what would you have liked to achieve this time next year? Adam?
My New Year's resolution is to spend more time with my family. You know, I think a lot of events, especially things like that just happened in Germany, make you realise how special family and your children actually are. So next year, it's more time with my kids. I'm not worried about work, it's more time with my kids.
Connie?
I would second that. I'd also say get my screen time down because it is astronomical at the moment.
Well, I would third that, and I would also say that I need to stop drinking like a Geordie fish, probably, because it's making me get quite fat. Chloe?
My aim is to not go to prison in 2025.
Well,
I'm hoping to make it through the whole year without Keir Starmer locking me up.
Yeah, Susie?
My aim is to eat more healthy, to keep fit more, and always to spend more time with my beautiful sons.
Oh. And Helen says, I really like Connie, if only there were more like her, ready to put her head above the parapet. That's nice for a debut.
Thank you
Next
very
up,
much.
it's Leo Curse with the Saturday Night Showdown. I'll see you next week. Well, I like...
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. We're looking ahead to Christmas after a cold and very windy day on Sunday. The weather does look like it's settling down towards Christmas itself, and for all of us feeling a good deal milder. But before we get there, we still have this area low pressure close by. Note the tightly packed isobars indicating some very windy weather, especially across more northern and western parts. We do have warnings in force throughout Sunday, so if you do have any travel plans, do allow some extra time for your journeys. Away from the wind, we'll see plenty of showers moving in, especially across more northern parts where we'll see some of the showers turn into sleet and snow, especially across the high ground. So we could just see a little bit of ice around first thing on Sunday, but for most, really, Sunday is going to be a day of sunshine and scattered showers. The far north of Scotland, however, we could just see a longer spell of rain arriving here, and again, that could potentially be a bit of a mix of rain, sleet and snow. But back to showers really for Northern Ireland and Northern England. Again, across the high ground, easily going to be falling as sleet and snow. Similar story for Wales, but I think for many southern parts of England, any showers will be falling mainly as rain. And then moving towards the afternoon, very little